dispatching some, dispatching with an ambush on the road, on the Ivyheart Byway, I believe it was. Let me go to the big map. Yes, down the Ivyheart Byway as you pass by Ironseat Ridge, were ambushed by goblins. And if I'm not mistaken, you found a small path heading to the, it would have been heading to the west, I believe, off into the woods that appeared to have been traipsed by goblins, but being part of a caravan, you decided not to go down there because you don't think the old people could take it, and made your way to Gravesford, where you were greeted by, as I said earlier, Ryan, one of the guards people of the town, one of two, and he greets you, tells you where to go. You ended the session, I believe, right in the centre of town, where the "You Are Here" sign is, outside the Reluctant Pig, the name of the tavern, a general store, and the town master's hall. And last thing that happened, a short halfling man. Let me just make sure he's a halfling before I get over my head. If it loads. Yes, yeah, a halfling man with a thick handlebar moustache, so thick you can't see his top lip, exits from the town master's hall and spreads his arms and says, "Welcome to Gravesford." And here we are now. So it is, I believe, like 3 p.m., like just after midday, and you are in the centre of town. What would you like to do?
Preferably find some lodgings, I suppose.
Okay. So the tavern right next to you, the Reluctant Pig, if logic serves, will likely have some lodgings there. Obviously not permanent. You'll have to like pay by the night, but you do have some gold, if I'm not mistaken. And as I said, a lot of these houses are empty, not even once occupied, just empty.
Is there anyone around to speak to?
Yes, yeah. There's the town master who is, well, spoilers, the town master, who's just outside the front. He's sort of walking up to you as you're taking a look around. And there's bound to be, you can hear conversation inside the Reluctant Pig, and there's obviously the people in your caravan, but they're not going to be much help. So the town master, he walks up to you, as I said, halfling guy, just with his bare feet, hit the ground, walking towards you, and he sort of just like comes up to the side of of one of the caravans, and he's looking almost directly upwards at probably you, Honu, and he says, "Ah, welcome to Gravesford." And he just sticks his hand like straight up towards you, almost like vertically upwards, being like 3 feet tall.
I grab his hand a little bit. Obviously, my appendages would be a little dissimilar to what he'd probably be familiar with.
Yep, it's like trying to shake hands with a tree. There's just like a big, yeah.
Howdy.
Wow, lethal grip you got there. Well, welcome to Gravesford. I assume you're, and he sort of like looks down the caravan and sees the number of villagers. I assume you're not just passing through.
Mm-hmm. We've been on the road a little while. We all need places to stay. Doesn't seem to be many people in this town.
We get more by the day, but yes, so if you're looking for somewhere to stay, I can't imagine you'd struggle. However, not very many of the buildings are quite ready yet. If you head to the Reluctant Pig, just through there, say hi to the proprietor, you should be able to sort yourselves out with a room, no problem. With the amount of you, and he sort of just like counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like counting as many people. It might be a bit of a squeeze, but you should all be able to fit in there. Worst case scenario, I'm sure someone might be willing to unlock a building or two to have you stay in, at least for the time being.
Unoccupied. Well, that could be an option, given how many of us there are.
He looks you up and down, and sees that you especially have got like quite a nasty, I think it was like a cut on your upper arm as that goblin like sort of cavalry charge came in from the side and cut you up. And he says, "Wow, you've been through the wars there. What happened to you lot on the way in here? Those don't look like traveling wounds."
Goblins. Nasty
Goblins.
beggars.
Yes, we've been having some trouble with them as of late. At least it's not the orcs, though. Goblins they're quite violent, but I don't know, there's something about them. They're less overtly dangerous, shall we say. But if you happen upon any more, feel free to get rid of them. And if you actually start getting rid of them properly, we've got a bounty set up over there. And he sort of motions to a board just out the front of the Townmaster's Hall with a couple of notices like nailed to it. And one of them, like one of the most prominent ones, is a sort of just like a wanted poster, but without any real picture. It's just wanted, one silver piece for every dead goblin. Payment provided upon proof of dispatching.
I will like casually step over to it and take the bounty off the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got like, you know, those the pull away things at the bottom. It's got like a number of
yeah. Call this number.
Exactly, yeah. It's got like that. And you run up, you grab one of them, and it's basically just a note saying where you got this poster from, or where you got this bounty from. And looking at it further, it goes into a bit more detail. Basically, for every goblin that you can prove that you killed, you get 1 silver piece. And they don't go into much detail describing how you prove that you killed them, but they do require evidence of doing so.
So it seems that not only, if I'm right in what you were saying, you have a problem with goblins and orcs.
No, not anymore. No, the orcs they aren't as big of an issue currently, at least. They haven't been attacking us, haven't been raiding any carriages. They've sort of disappeared off the face of the earth the last couple of weeks. The goblins, however, they're pests. They're just vermin. Nothing really to worry about. They're just.
Any idea where their nest is?
Oof. He sort of just like does that like oof, yikes face, like his mouth spreads open a little bit, and looks off to the edge of town, and you see there's just like this huge forest. I mean, I'll move you over here. He's saying, well, beauty of goblins, I suppose, is that there's just about anywhere that they can take root. We have noticed that there are a number of them up in the Iron Seat Ridge. We haven't found any hideouts per se, but gets more active, shall we say, further north you go. So if you're looking for them, chances are that you may have gone past where they're seated already, seeing as you came in from that direction.
Okay, and what about the orcs? You said they vanished, but you must have known where they were.
Oh, let's see. Well, they orcs they're a peculiar bunch. They're more intelligent than the goblins. So we weren't quite as. We didn't make it quite as obvious where they might be coming from. We believe that they had some kind of outpost is a stretch of the word. Ivy Heart Thicket seems to be where most of the problems come from. You understand, it was near here that they spawned. So we are yet to quite figure out how they work, shall we say? But they aren't bothering us quite as much anymore, at least.
Okay. Looks like we'll have to head in and see if we can settle a bed for our traveling folk. Hmm.
But before we do, what is thy name?
My name, and he sticks his hand out to you, sort of walks over, sticks his hand out to you. My name's Corin Underbrush, Townmaster Corin Underbrush. I'll put the name in chat. Pleasure to meet you. And your name. Sorry, so rude of me. So rude of me. And as you're having this conversation, like one or two people have come out of the tavern, and like sort of just walk into your little array of carts, and one or two of them are sort of like saying hi to the people as they walk past, and they're going about their day, going back home or wherever they might be headed.
Oh, Astering, absolute pleasure.
He shakes your hand, and says, "So, yes, if you head inside to the reluctant pig, you do look rather beaten up, if you don't take too much offence in me saying. So feel free to, well, whatever you might need. I'm sure they'll be able to sort you out some food, some ale, and a soft bed. Well, soft might be a bit itchy, but it's part of the charm. If you need anything from me," and he points over his shoulder, "you know where to find me. But otherwise, welcome to Gravesford. I'm sure your stay shall be lovely."
Yeah,
And
before
then
you go,
Mhm.
are there any other amenities, shops, or any kind of market?
Of course. Well, in 2 days' time, there will be the town market in the centre of the square, and if you haven't found everything by then you will be able to find it there. As far as the town goes, and I'll just go out of character now, move this across, and I will just go over a couple of the shops and things that are around the town. So in the very top left, so the northwest, there is a chapel of Saint Gade the Confessor, a saint of the Dawnfather. There is a blacksmith and a weapon seller, basically. Like one of them makes the weapons, the other one sells them. There's the general store, which is you're outside it now, called Osric's General. There is another inn in the northeast of town, but it didn't seem at all busy. There's carpenters, various just things of the trade. There's a manor house, stable lodge, obviously, and he says, and if you're that way inclined, I suppose there's also Pinner's shop. She's a strange little sort, but if you head down to the south of town, cross the river, should be able to find it. It's the one that's making all the noise, shall we say.
Well, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. And he's just like he hasn't ever put his teeth away. Like he kind of looks like what's his name? I can't remember his name. There's some celebrity who's just always smiling, just this huge, like massive teeth. He's got like Tom Cruise teeth, like one in the middle, just perfect teeth. And he's always smiling. He says, "Right, well, cheerio then." And he just turns on his heel and walks back inside of the Townmaster's Hall, and leaves you to it.
Was it me? Or did anyone else think that it's weird that he seems a bit too happy, given the current climate here?
There doesn't seem to be a reason why they wouldn't be.
Well, after everything we've seen.
Ashy Pete pipes up and he says, "Well, there's nothing wrong with putting on a brave face." And then he like starts very, very slowly climbing out the back of his cart. Like it takes just like a full 3 minutes to get out. and like clicks his back a couple of times and heads off towards the tavern.
Yeah, you can see it this time after that comment. Like Hanu's like almost like trying to practice like a smile, like almost like a falsified smile. It's not something he's usually familiar with anyway.
Mm-hmm. I imagine your biology makes it quite difficult as well, because you don't have. I don't even know if turtles have teeth.
No, it's their jaw is allegedly sharper.
Yeah, they've got like a turtle, right? They've got like almost a beak. Yeah, so the idea of smiling is probably quite difficult when you've got a turtle face.
Is he trying because he said a brave face and
Absolutely
wants to be brave?
We go into the reluctant pig, I guess.
Okay, so you head inside, and it is a very stereotypical tavern. There's a couple of tables scattered around the place with one or two patrons. This is a working day, so it's not packed. It does look almost like bigger on the inside. Like it's very, very spacious, and like they're making the most of the room that they have. You see there is a bar at front. There is a human woman behind the bar who is dealing with the customer, who obviously pouring out ale as they ask for it. And you can see behind her there appears to be some kind of like kitchen area. And then as you step in, you hear excuse me, and a child, probably like 12 years old, just like she's like 12 or 13, sort of like just barges through your group, just straight through the middle with a tray with two flagons of ale on it, just like through you, nimbly dodging left and right, and manages to squeeze her way through and heads over to a table to put down the flagons of ale.
Hanu will walk almost vacantly up to the bar, reach to his side, unhitch the head of the goblin that he decapitated, and slosh it straight onto the bar top. Holding
the woman behind the bar finishes up with as she's finishing up with the person she's talking to, she like takes the money from them and turns to face you, and she starts saying, "Hi, how can I help?" But then catches her breath once when she sees that you're a turtle. She goes, "Hi," and then you put a goblin head on the thing. She goes, "Ah!" and just ducks. She ducks behind the bar, and you hear from inside the kitchen, "What was that? What's going on?"
Heard there was a reward for goblin.
The person from within the kitchen steps out. I would say they step out. They just like call from within. They don't really see them or anything. Just calls out from in the kitchen. You may have gone to the wrong place. And then the woman behind the bar pokes her head back over again and says, Could you please?" And sort of like starts trying to push the head away with the back of her hand. You if you're looking to cash that in, you want to go to the town master's hall. We're not a bank. And starts just like trying to get rid of almost like she's trying to like shoo it away. She doesn't want to touch it. And just trying to get rid of the head that's on the
She's just still holding on to it, but letting it slip off the side of
it. She gets like a wooden spoon and uses the handle of it and just like pokes the goblin head like in the side of the head, and like it just slides across the thing. And that little girl runs up to you, Honu, and runs up with like an empty tray and plops it on the desk, and then sees the goblin and he goes, "What's that?"
Well, this is a goblin. Was a goblin.
Funny. And then she just like grabs two more flagons of ale that are needed at a different table and just speeds off again, like so quick that you think she's going to spill it, but seemingly very expertly and practically doesn't. And after the head has been removed from the bar, the woman stands up and turns to face you, and she says, "Okay, sorry about my daughter. You need to take that to the town master's hall. I think you may have got some messages crossed. Sorry, you're new in town. Welcome, and she sort of like resets and like, okay, right, start from scratch. Welcome to the Reluctant Pig. Apart from the bounty on the goblin's head, how can I help?
Hmm.
Can you just put the gate on the stairs?
A place to stay.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all. We have. How many of there are you? And as you do it, like as most of these NPCs have done, they sort of look over your shoulder and see, like outside, there's a number of carts. Right, that'll be all of the rooms then. Well, it's 1 gold piece for a week's stay. And by the looks of it, you're going to need all of the rooms, so it'll be divided amongst however many there are of you. We have 5 rooms available. If that's to your liking, everyone else, I have a feeling you're not going to be able to fit everyone in. Everyone else may have to find lodgings elsewhere. Sorry, my name's Giselle, and she doesn't like stick her hand out or anything. She's like cleaning the side. She like thinks to shake your hand, but then realizes that you've got a goblin head in your hand. It's like rather not. Starts cleaning the blood and grime off the tabletop. Says, my name's Giselle. You met Brecca. You are.
Well, I'm Astrid, and she just looks at Holly and everyone else around them.
Yeah. You see that oh man, this sucks. Angus hasn't come inside. He is elsewhere. And oh fuck, what's her name? Naylin is sort of just like, she's doing that thing. She's covering her mouth with a napkin again and like pretending she can't see anyone. Just like almost looking up at the ceiling, like, oh, this place is awful. And she introduces herself as Naylin, pleased, I'm sure, and begins getting ready to go upstairs as soon as possible. And as I said, Angus hasn't come inside.
Right. Okay. So.
Sorry, I
How
may have missed this. So we spoke about how much rooms are, or
yes, it's 1 gold for a week, like for 1 room for a week, which is it's around £100 basically for a week's stay, and that is per room. So if you guys want to stay here, it might add up quickly, but again, it's for a week, so it's not too bad.
Okay.
So I assume you want some food, some drink, and she like calls out behind her to the person in the kitchen and says, Gurik, love, could you make 6 just mains, just everything we have, just something normal. It looks like we have a couple of new travelers in, and he says, yep, okay. Again, just hidden off somewhere in the kitchen. You noticed as you're talking to her that she has a rather nasty burn. Like, as she turns, you can see up the side of her neck, like under where her shirt collar would be, you see like quite a nasty burn mark. That ordinarily, like, she's got quite a high collared shirt, so you can't see it, but when she turns, it sort of exposes itself. And she turns back and says, right, so food will be with you. Take a seat for the time being. And she motions to one of the various empty tables. Says, your little group can fit on one, and I'm sure we'll find spaces for everyone else in your traveling party. And again, just looks out the door through the window, just seeing how many people she's about to have to start making drinks for.
I think it's gonna nod Thank you very much. And I'm going to make my way over to a table and sit and try and work out how the hell they're going to pay for this.
Okay. Make a perception check as you do. You notice as you're going through two things. One, that you're getting a couple of funny looks, which is relatively normal. But of the people that are sort of stood around, like looking about the place, they seem to be giving you a bit of a weird, well, all of you, to be honest, a bit of a weird look. They're like, oh, I don't see very many of you around here and that sort of thing. Not like with hostility, but like how how children almost stare at someone who's got like hair dyed blue. They just like sit and stare, not because they're being rude or anything. They just don't know much better. And with an 18, you also notice that Giselle doesn't really seem phased at all. Don't give a shit. Which is probably quite a strange thing. Like most people, the first time you interact with them are like, ugh, what are you? Not in a mean way, just out of sort of like if you met someone with gills, you'd probably be quite surprised as well. But yeah, she doesn't seem phased in the slightest, and the kid running around, I mean, cannot get a bead on him at all, so there's no way to tell. But yeah, you head over to a table, sit yourselves down. It is you, 3, and Naylin just goes straight upstairs. She gets the key and just disappears. It doesn't seem like she wants to be around these common folk for too long. And Angus is just not. He hasn't come in yet. You are you wait for a little while, and the child comes over, Brecca, and she has a tray with ale for the lot of you. Pops it down, and he goes, "Okay," and then just runs off again. And you have the time to yourselves if you like to discuss anything. Again, it's like 3, getting on to 4 p.m. now.
Well, this is a welcome change.
I suppose. She's gonna look at Armra and say, "Is this somewhere that you're used to?"
Not anymore.
I should
happy.
note that a lot of you like fully just haven't been inside in a number of weeks. Like just being like with literally a roof over your head is a something new. Not new, but it hasn't been that way for a little while. So even that's got to be something like it's a little bit off. But you were saying
Not anymore.
What was the question? I don't think I heard the question right.
Are you used to being inside somewhere like this?
Oh, I used to be. But it's been a while since I've been inside and not traveling.
Excuse me, but I'm finding it difficult to place you. Have you been traveling with us for long?
I've been with you guys. I've been with you for several weeks now. But I like to keep to myself. I like to not make a scene.
Well, it looks like we've got a place to stay for now. But I think perhaps we should see what work there is, because the money we have isn't going to last long.
Yeah, how much money do you have? Just the three of you.
I have 3 gold pieces.
I have 10.
How's that?
I have none.
How do you have no gold?
I don't know. It didn't give me any, and
What?
this is a stark change to my usual shit on D&D.
Right, what are you... 1 sec. I think
you-
you're meant to
buy
have
your own
some
equipment?
money.
Did you buy your own equipment?
It's not an equipment. Yeah, it's just not there. I
No,
went
did you
to
buy
the-
your own equipment?
No.
So
I don't know.
you get. What's your background?
Noble.
Most backgrounds give you 10 gold, I think.
I would hope.
5 or 10. Oh, you've got 25 gold.
Oh,
Damn, look at you go.
Noble's quite high, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for good reason. You also, because this, yeah. So because of the background feature you get, I think, there's a thing where you get a servant to follow you around, I think. But
I think
obviously
it depends on
that
what
isn't the case.
noble. It depends on what noble background you've chosen.
Oh, is that one of the
Yeah,
options?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. There's different versions of the noble background. One of which allows you to have a servant.
Oh yeah, one gives you a servant. One of them, sort of like anyone who is also of noble birth will sort of be nicer to you, essentially.
Yeah.
that's the
so
one
no,
I have. Yeah.
yeah. So you just know how to talk to posh people, basically. Okay, yeah. So you actually have 25 gold, minus however much you may have spent by now, but I'm not sure there's much.
I probably wouldn't have, to be fair, would I?
Yeah. Yeah. So you are all able to pay for a room for a little while, and Nailin sorts herself out. She buys her own room, and you are so you're given the evening, and nothing really happens unless you want to do anything.
Well, given the fact that Hanu's now been indicated which direction he actually needs to go, he'll kind of just be like,
excuse me for a minute, and I think I have something to attend to.
and heads out the door towards the town master's hall.
Okay. So how many of the goblins' heads did you
One.
remove? Just the one.
But
Okay, yeah.
but I do have 5 goblin skulls on a necklace around my neck.
Okay. Are they new?
It's hard to tell.
That's the thing.
They're very
you can
clean.
hand them in. Yeah, you can absolutely feel free to hand them in. But you can't.
I'm not handing this
No,
one.
no, that's yeah. So you head over to the town master's hall, and you open the door. It's a public building. It's basically like the town mayor's hall. The first room you enter is the reception, and there's a receptionist there, and she appears to be doing a bit of paperwork. Looks up towards you and says, "Oh, hello. Oh, you must be the party that the town master told me about. I take it you're here to deposit that," and sort of offhandedly points to the head in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it just the one that you're handing in?
Well, the bounty said proof, and I have a number of proofs.
And he kind of tilts his head from side to side and makes the necklace clatter.
Mm-hmm. Says, so that's 1, 2, 3. That'll be 6 silver pieces for the lot then. And she opens a drawer and ching, 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 you hear her preparing coins. So she pops them on the desk, and then she pulls out a burlap sack and says, "If you please deposit the heads in here."
Now
And
here's
sort of
the
just,
thing.
holding out.
I have a bit of a thing for trinkets and trophies,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't mind providing proof, but the notice didn't say anything about you keeping the proof.
Well, we don't keep the proof. We destroy it. Otherwise, you could, come in with a goblin's hand and then leave town, hand it to your friend, and they come in with the same goblin's hand, and we
You
pay for
can
the same
make a
thing twice.
mark, I'm sure.
We could, however,
Do you
as
have
a
many
rule,
turtles come through here?
no. However, that isn't quite the issue. I'm afraid the rule is that they have to be handed in. Otherwise, we can't verify that it's a new corpse. I'm sure you understand. There's 100 myriad ways to remove a mark, as you say, and we are, well, a little bit tight on money, and we don't want to be handing out coins for the same thing twice. Trust me, there's plenty more goblins to be had out in the
Seems like
woods.
those
Shouldn't
who
be
can
too
put
difficult to
these
find
to
some
good
more.
use seem to be missing out on reward, if you ask me. But if that's your ruling,
Just in future, if you'd like it to make it a bit easier on yourself, all we may need is just something smaller than an entire head, perhaps.
now
Maybe
where's
just
the
any.
fun in that? And he plonks the goblin head that's still wrapped in its own skin on the desk, all over the paperwork.
And she no. Oh, thank you ever so much.
I'll take the one reward. I've grown
Okay,
accustomed
and
to
she
the ones
hands
round
over
my neck.
she hands over the 1 silver piece and says, "Be sure to bring back any more you may come across, shall we say?"
Oh, I will, but let me be sure that if you say something smaller and I bring, say, 3 fingers, are you prepared to say that that's 3 kills?
No, we need proof that they are separate things. That's why we typically say an ear, because you can tell which ear that is if you do a left ear on every single one. It's small, and goblins only have one left ear, or perhaps a left hand, something that's not mirrored.
Then can I perhaps advise you update your notice?
We'll take it into account. She gives you this look like this is the first time anyone's ever tried to like legally their way into getting more money. But we will, yes, of course, take it into account. Make sure that those who are carrying out these tasks are aware that it is we try and avoid being cheated.
Well, it's clearly something you keep having a problem with. Perhaps if you needed someone to get rid of them all, how much would you say something like that would be worth?
Well, however many goblins there are, getting rid of all of them would surely give you quite a bounty. However, you also must understand we can't break the bank. We won't literally bankrupt the entire town to pay for extermination of the entire goblin race.
The ones
If
that are
you were
bothering you
to,
are surely local.
well, yes, of course. And as we said, if you were to get rid of all the goblins, then that's a lot of goblins you can get paid 1 silver for.
You have a lot of empty homes.
Yes, we do.
How much would you say a home would be worth?
Oh, now that is interesting. And she sort of like takes a second. Allow me just a moment. And she takes the head and sort of like walks it off. And she like opens the door out to the back, and you hear it just and like hit the ground, and then you hear like a dog barking. And she comes back in and says, "If I were to think on it,
well, I'm not going nowhere.
Goblins, they're from what we understand, they're quite a rudimentary set of creatures, and they do seem to sort of obey whoever's biggest. So if you can get rid of the biggest with evidence of who they are, and perhaps root out wherever they might be, I'd say that's absolutely worth one of our houses. Obviously warranting a reduction in the notable threat. Obviously, you can't just go off into the woods, kill one goblin, tell us it was their boss, and then we don't notice a drop in goblin attacks. You understand? Oh, sorry, that I misphrased that. She wouldn't say goblin attacks. She would probably say like the vermin problem. They haven't been like, besieged. They haven't had attacks come into town. It's just like every now and again someone will be harassed on the road or robbed on the road. They aren't like literally terrorizing the town.
Well, okay then. Thank you for your time. And he picks
My
up
pleasure.
his 1 silver, was it?
Yeah, just the 1 silver.
No worries.
If you go back to where you fought the other ones and you decapitate the other 3, I mean that's another 3 silver.
It's not the one that attacked me. That's fine.
Only the one that actually landed a hit in on you is worth getting the head of. Okay, yeah. So she wishes you farewell, and sort of motions towards the door. You head out. Everyone else in the tavern, you receive your food while Ohana was out, and you are fed. A couple of the other people in the caravan also come in, and they set themselves up, and you are sort of just left to it, basically. Like no one comes up to you and harasses you or anything. No, there's no like, oh, I sure wish someone would kill those monsters in my back garden, like plot hooks. But you sort of are just like not treated as one of the town members, but sort of just left to your own devices. If there's anything else anyone would like to do, or if you're headed anywhere today, we can fast forward, assuming everyone's like marked off the gold for their staying the night and everything. We can fast forward to the next morning. What is everyone's plan? What do you guys want to do? Because obviously, if you're after money, just seems that killing goblins works very well. And you also did find that trail off from the main road. But
so obviously, I'd like to palm off the information that I learned from the receptionist to the rest of the group. I would have done that through the night anyway, just to get them up to speed.
Yeah, essentially, if you can clear out like a goblin den, and whoever's in charge, you kill them and prove evidence of it, then you would get the gold for all of the dead goblins, and like as an added tip for doing such a good job, you get a house, which is not too bad. Also, I imagine you sort of like spark up conversation with a couple of people, and a couple of things about the town. Like all the houses were built in advance. However, a lot of the people who live here, you're sort of given a house if you can prove your worth to the town, basically. So if you show up and you're like, oh, I'm a blacksmith, they say, okay, prove it. You make a sword, and they go, okay, yeah, you're clearly a blacksmith who like knows what they're doing. Here's a house, here's a shop, and they just like set you up with it as like an incentive for living there, essentially. Which is why a lot of the houses are empty at the moment, because there's just not enough craftspeople have shown up. But it also means there aren't any like deadbeats, basically. There's everyone who lives there has proven that they can live there. And because a lot of the people who are on your caravan were like tradespeople, like farmers and just like common folk, they can give them a little bit of time and they'll be able to set themselves up with a place to call their own.
Is the bartender ever like, looks like there's no one really at the bar, like not really doing much?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's times where there's lulls. There's times where she's not doing much, and she sort of seems to sort of like stare off out of the window, just like watching the sunset as it's getting towards the end of the day. There's times where she's left her own devices. Yeah.
I'm gonna go up to. Was it Giselle?
Yes, Giselle.
Giselle, I'm gonna go up to them. Hi. I'm on a research mission on the surface. I was wondering.
I did notice the I don't know what you call them. She sort of like motions to your neck or like her neck. It's like I did notice that. funny. Sorry. Continue. Don't let me interrupt.
Oh, they're called gills. They I believe
Gills.
the water- Yeah.
I didn't want to say gills because I thought that might be like a that's the same name we have for the ones on fish. So I didn't know if it'd be rude. But okay, gills. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know.
You're welcome. I'm researching. Was wondering whether thou could give me some information about this area, about maybe about your life. I'm writing everything I know for our civilization to know about things. Completely like Clancy, and can I interview you for my space pod kind of thing?
And she sort of like looks a little bit not taken aback, but she's like, "Oh my!" And like puts her hand to her chest for a second, says, "Yes, of course. That's not a problem. What would you? Where would you like to begin? Well, you know my name. You know where I work. I live upstairs. What else would you like to know?
How did you come to be here? Maybe.
Well, like many of the people in the town, I used to live in the town of Torfil, which unfortunately is a ruin now, and she sort of like gets a bit like dark for a second. But I was like many of the survivors was looking for a new place to live, and this town was just starting out. So we up and moved. It was just me. I unfortunately I lost my family in the attack. However, as we travelled, I met my husband who's back there, and she motions to the kitchen. He's a wonderful cook. And upon meeting him, he's from around here. And make an insight check.
Nah.
He's from around here. And it says, and yes, so he's from around here. And we hit it off. We have quite a unique little connection, us two. And the one thing led to another. Turns out his cooking was enough to have everyone start asking to pay money for it, and we set up the Reluctant Pig, and we've had our daughter, and it's been plain sailing ever since. It's honestly a largely uneventful life, apart from the that bit in the middle there. She's around like in her mid to like early 40s, maybe early 40s, human, and she's sorry, one sec. And she will go into more and more detail if you ask. What are the kinds of things are you asking about?
It could be anything from where they get the food, basically anything that comes to their head they're going to ask, and they're going to probably do it for the next few days around everyone they can around town. Just out of
Right.
character, throwing that out. It's going to happen at some point.
Okay, yeah. So unless otherwise stated, you are interviewing people that you haven't met before.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So yeah, she explains to you that there are these strange spotted creatures called cows, and they they butcher them and eat the meat. And you know all the sort of like very mundane things that you're like, oh yeah, no, we like yeah, I know where ale comes from and that sort of thing. That just like doesn't stuff like that just doesn't really work underwater. So yeah, she absolutely because I imagine living underwater, your diet would basically be like sushi, right? Because it's all seafood, and obviously you can't have a fire to cook something underwater.
Yeah, raw fish kind of stuff.
Cool. Yeah, so yeah, she explains a couple of the very mundane things that maybe you just didn't get around to asking a question about before. I was just like confused as to what the meat everyone was eating was, and why they set fire to their food before eating it, and that sort of thing. Yeah, and she's a common person. She's not quite as well spoken as you are by any means, but she is very polite, and for someone who you met today, is very non-invasive about the fact that you are a sea elf, which few people are. Yeah, that's that. Anything else, Amra or Hono? Anything else you're up to?
For now, not for me.
Okay.
Yeah, me neither. I'm just chilling.
Lurking. Lovely. Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we will fast forward then to the next morning. The sun rises, obviously. It's still a little bit overcast, but there's the sun like begins to peek through in the early morning. And you are welcome to go downstairs, sort yourself out for breakfast. And the day is yours. So what is what is your plan for the day?
If we've got the day to spend, I'll just, I guess, obviously, Hanu will see if anyone's like heading out. He does it in a very kind of, I don't want to be like put anyone out of place, but I'm heading out kind of thing. And he'll head towards like the smithy and the sword and board.
Yeah, sword and board.
Just to see what's going on, what they're about, what they have.
Okay. Yeah. So as you travel, sword and board would be the first place you get to. It is most of these buildings are very plain. They have a stone foundation, otherwise are just made of wood. The tavern is like the only building that is almost entirely made of stone. Like the tavern and the townmaster's hall are made of stone. Everywhere else is made of wood because they're not less permanent buildings, but not as occupied as much. So you head to Sword and Board. As you travel down that road, the first thing you hear is just ting, 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 clearly of someone forging something. And upon heading inside, let me double check who is the owner of Sword and Board. Yeah, so you open the door and ding, 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 opens, and behind the counter, there is a rather bored-looking half-elf woman in her, it's hard to tell because obviously half-elf, but around 30s, just looks bored out of her mind, like half asleep, elbow on the desk, chin in hand, and then you open the door and she sort of like comes to and says, hello, hello, welcome to Sword and Board. How can I help?
I'm just having a look. See
Well,
what you have.
She sort of like stands up really straight, almost like robotic, and says, "Feel free to have a look." And then like takes a seat on her little like stool behind the counter, and you see around the room there's just very basic weapons. Essentially, there's everything you could possibly find in the player's handbook, plus a couple of like specialty items that are basically like there's certain elvish weapons, like I think it's called Revenant Blade, which is basically just like a quarterstaff with a mini sword on each end, and a couple of other slightly more exotic weapons, but for the most part they're just fairly bog standard. Just
obviously, given the reason why he's carrying the weapon that he's carrying, is there anything that's similar?
So there's plenty of other like two-handed heavy weapons. If you wanted to have a look around for that, there you see there are there's great swords in two different styles behind the thing, and there's a great axe, along with other like more polearm items such as like halberds and glaives and that sort of thing.
But no other lances.
There's, tell you what, because a lance is typically a weapon for a mounted combatant, obviously, and the likelihood of someone coming through here who like owns their own horse, which is actually quite a big deal, is pretty slim. But the actually, like you would have to ask for it. Just like, we don't have many people ask around for lances, but not. Yes, of course. Just one moment, and she heads out like into a little back storeroom, and you hear her like open a crate or two. It's like, okay, found it. And she comes back in through the front, and she shows you a lance. It's not the lance like the one you have in your character art. It is more of a almost like a long spear, but the blade has sort of like a fork. Like there's like a crossbar like halfway down the actual shaft of the weapon, to so it doesn't just get caught on everything. But otherwise it will function as a lance. Yeah, it says, well, this is the closest thing we have, and it's more designed for being on the ground. It's closer to a glaive than a lance, but it would function as a mounted weapon if that's what you're after.
I just would like to have seen another one. There's not many I've come across before.
Yes, you aren't likely to find many people using them outside of the ranks of knights. Toma, are you what's drawn you to the weapon exactly?
It's a heritage gift.
Oh, I understand completely. I understand. And she sort of like pats her side, and you see there is a rapier to her side that looks quite nice. Very clearly not for sale. She says, "No, I understand completely. That's I admire that.
What
is it just
what
to
did
look at
this
it?
contraction do? And he will pick up, not knowing what it is, but he will pick up a crossbow or like an arm crossbow or anything like
Oh
that.
yes, yeah. There's a crossbow you pick up, and she says, "Well, that's a crossbow. It's fires projectiles. This is the light variety. It works like," and she sort of like tries to take it off of you to try and show you how it works. It's not loaded or anything.
Sure.
She sort of like muscle away and grabs it off you, and says it functions like this. And she sort of like motions and it explains how it works. There's a lever or a winding mechanism that you use to pull back. That clicks behind here, and then there's a big trigger on the bottom. You pull that, and it fires the string forward. And she says, and you would understand how, as the string is pushed forward, it propels the bolt out the front. They're relatively common. They're a bit easier to use than longbows. They take a bit more training.
Does anyone have like bigger versions, like perhaps one of these? And he kind of pulls out one of his spears from the side.
You got like your throwing javelins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It says, well, I'm not sure if there would be anything that could propel that outside of a ballista. However, I'm not sure we have. I don't stock those. They're a bit expensive. The largest one we have of these, and she like basically gets a heavy crossbow. Says, is this? It's the projectiles aren't as big, but the propulsion is quite vicious, and that would actually do a fair bit of damage. But it's they're a bit fiddly, shall we say. They take a while to get a few off. If you're quick with your hands with those, and she motions to a javelin, so you could throw as many as you fancied with them.
Interesting. Just never seen anything like it.
Well, that's you'll find that they're relatively common among the common folk of the world. We tend to use those over something more typical like a longbow or a throwing weapon because they take a bit less skill to use. But that's not to underestimate. They are rather nasty indeed.
Well, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Thornton, Guriel Thornton, and she like sort of like almost a half bow towards you, a bit quite awkward. It says, I must be new in town. Well, if anyone in your little traveling group that I've heard about needs a new weapon, tell them to come find me. They won't find a better deal many places else.
Sure thing.
Lovely. Bye bye now. And she sort of waves as you leave the building. So where we do? Did you want to head to the blacksmith? This would be like 2 doors down from there.
Is anyone? Did anyone decide to follow Hanu, or is he kind of now bounding in his own?
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh yeah, actually, would Astrid like want to follow along and sort of do
Oh, yeah, but
investigative journalism?
Yeah, pretty much. They'll probably wait till Hana comes out and then just bundle their way into the thing and start writing down everything that the.
Okay, yeah. So you're like basically Hanu is just going around town, like having a look around, and you're just following him, writing down everything anyone says. Yeah, cool. So you, yeah, so you're following along. Amra, are you going with them, or are you doing your own thing?
I'd be doing my own thing.
Cool. So what is that thing, if you don't mind me asking? Anything exciting, or just
Sitting in the bar drinking.
Oh,
Sitting in the tavern drinking.
that'll do it. That'll do it. While you're in the tavern, you're like, I don't know what your insight bonus is. I imagine it's quite high, being, as you said, you like to lurk, and you seem to be taking in a lot of people.
Yeah.
What's your insight bonus?
4.
Cool. Yeah, that's not bad. You seem to notice that the way the child is carrying themselves is very strange for a human.
So the way the who?
The child, the barkeep's daughter, Brecca. She's like, as she runs around and delivers drinks and food and that sort of thing. She's obviously got a lot of energy, being like a child, but the way she carries herself seems very odd. Like it's almost like as she walks, she like plods rather than walks like heel to toe. It's just like whole foot down at the same time.
Okay.
Just a thing you notice.
Does it mean anything to me? Do I get any sort of? Have I seen anything walk like that before?
Make a perception check. She doesn't seem to be entirely human. She's quite, for a child, as she's like 13 or so, she's quite stocky. And she like stomps about, almost like reminds you of how a dwarf would go about, but she's like pretty quick. And she's got like sort of like a heavy set like brow line. It was like the classic Neanderthal like skull shape where the top brow just sticks out like a lot further than everywhere else.
Okay. Is she a dwarf?
No. You can tell she's not a dwarf. She like dwarves. They wouldn't like stomp. They're more like waddle because they're set to be. Yeah, almost like that. Doesn't appear to be a dwarf. There's various telltale signs. Like if you're a dwarf, you would like your hips are set wider and your shoulders are really wide, so you sort of like almost like pigeon toe. Your feet would like spin outwards. That's why they've only got 25-foot movement speed. They're not just very good at walking. And she seems to be like lightning quick, running about the place, very athletic. But
is
yeah,
she
like,
is she regular height for a child, or is she small for a child?
Maybe a bit tall.
A bit tall for a child.
Yes, of her age, yeah. But then again, like at her age, it could just be hit of the growth spurt like a month earlier than anyone else. It's at that age. But yeah, you know, it's like seems to be just a bit more built than a typical human of that. Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So you head off. You're saying you're going to the blacksmith next, right?
Sure.
Cool. So you head over to the blacksmith, and there's just ting, ting, ting coming from the outside, and you turn sort of round the corner, and there's the front door, and then directly adjacent to it, there's the actual like forge area where there is a human man. You notice there's mostly humans in this town. Let me just double check. Blacksmith. Yes. There's a human man in his like late 40s with like a shock of white hair coming like in a beard, like an Amish beard. So there's no mustache; it's just like all from the chin, and like a shock of white hair on top as well. It seems to almost be like bleached white, like it's just really almost ghostly pale, like it would be if you're a really old man, but he's not actually that old, like 50 at the latest. And you see his beard has been like cropped short, like probably about 6 inches from his chin, and it's all like blackened at the edges, a telltale sign that he may have caught fire at some point. And he got like dirty, sooty brown skin, as he is working. He looks like he's working on a set of horseshoes, and just hello. He like raises one hand and like sort of turns as you come around the corner.
Hey, Astrid, I think this guy is probably worthy of an interview.
I'm a bit busy at the moment. If there's how long? Sorry. Who are you?
We're just new in town. I personally wanted to see what kind of business you did.
I'm in the business of making and repairing items of metal. And he sort of like gestures around his shop, and it's just like piled high with hammers and mostly just tools, like farmers' tools that are in various states of disrepair. Like there's a pitchfork that's like one of the things is bent off to the side, and there's like a shovel that's snapped in half. And he just like motions around. He's like, I just repair and I make things made of metal. Every now and again, I'll make a weapon, but for the most part, it's just nails, horseshoes, and farming tools.
You make weapons, hmm?
On request, yes. I don't carry any in stock.
You any good?
I believe myself to be okay. I'll be honest, I'm not much in the way of a weaponsmith. If you want to know how the quality of my weapons, you're better off talking to Gariel.
I don't know much about smithing, but I know weapons are made. Is there anything that you make that's not a weapon?
All sorts, yeah. What are you after?
Well, again, being simple tools don't know much. But do you work a bone?
Let me think. Tell you what is it you're after, and I might be able to help out.
So, there's many things he's after. But he's ideally looking for someone that can work with a skull and manufacture something from it.
Okay. Anything in particular, or just like the ability to do
a musical item?
A musical item. He does not know how to make musical instruments. I could. I'd essentially just be going at it with a file. We've got plenty of those, and just like carving away what is needed. But I couldn't. I don't know how to make a musical instrument, unfortunately.
You sell those files?
Yeah. I could sell my. Yeah, you could. My old set. I could sell you. There wouldn't be much. It'd be. How much is a set of Smith's tools in the PHB? Because it would be like 1/10 of that. Smith's tools 5e. Yeah, he's like, yeah, 1 gold. 1 gold, and I'll sell you like almost everything you could possibly need to make it. He just doesn't know how to make. Like, okay. If you're like trying to make a flute or something, he's like, I have no fucking clue how to make a flute. I make horseshoes. I'm not not big in the way of, well, anything like anything that's too technical. He doesn't even make the crossbows that were
You
in the,
say
in the
I
shop.
can just file away at the bone and it might do something.
Okay, so mechanically speaking, you'd want to make sure that the place you're working is like soaked. Essentially, I would say leave it to marinate in water for a little while. It allows it to scrape away, and he sort of like shows you a couple of the tools that he's like offering you, and there's like a couple of what are they called, the I think they're called like diamond-headed chisels or something. Let me see. I think I've got it. I've got one in my room. Scraper. No.
I mean, he is a simpleton, but he's acting more like a simpleton to try and get a bit more kind of.
Yeah, here we go. A gouge. So he would sort of show you like you want to, like, if you're going to work with something as brittle as bone. He says this is the problem with using exotic materials, is that there's a reason we don't make swords out of bone. You would use this gouge if you just got this area all wet and you just like sort of carved a hole. It wouldn't be easy, to tell you that, and chances are something would break along the way, either be the tools or the workplace. But you just start there, and as soon as you get a hole through to the inside of the skull, just go at it with a file. Is probably the easiest way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll take your tools.
Lovely.
1 gold, you say?
1 gold, yes. And feel free if you need to use, well, if you need my advice or need to use my workspace. I mean, there's plenty of room. And he sort of like looks around and is like, oh, there's actually no room. I should clean up. Yes, you absolutely feel free to use my space. 1 gold for the set of files. That should be no problem. And he, like, they come in like a sort of a leather, like, lock picking kits. They come in those unrolling things. Yeah, you've got like them, but it obviously just files. And he sits up with that, and sort of like just goes over like, you want to use this one for flat edges, this one for this kind of edge, and just like gives you a brief going over of what kind of files there are. And he then turns to you, Asterin, and says, is there anything I could help you with, or are you just going to stand there and draw me?
How does fire work?
He just fully like just stops for a second. He's like, sorry?
Fire. How does it work? I felt that I was quite plain.
You mean my fire in particular?
Let's go with that.
Well, you see, and he sort of like goes over to his furnace, and says, so this is the burner. This is where the fire is. And he's like motioning to the big orange hot thing in the middle. I says, I would, if I needed it hotter, I put more wood and coal. This is the fuel. And he like sort of shows you the like his small pile of firewood and coal that he's got. He says, this is the fuel for the fire. And then if I need it hotter, then I use this. And he motions to the bellows. He says, and you pump air into it. Air, and you need 3 things to make fire. You need air, you need fuel, and you need heat. And that's ding, ding, ding. There's all 3 things here. So I don't know what to say to you. It is when. Oh, dear me. He just like he keeps like trying to think of a way to say it. He's like, he starts the sentence like, wait, no, that no. Like, what fire is when you set fire to, no, that's not. Give me a couple of days, maybe I could help you. However, the main gist of it is it's energy. It's what happens when you burn energy. It's air and fuel and heat comes together. It makes more heat and light and noise, and when things are hot, they're easier to change their shape. And he like sort of shows you this like red hot end of a sword that's like sat inside the forge. It makes it easier to shape if it's hot, and that's why I use it.
Fiona nods and says, if that was amenable. If
I is that a, what'd you say? He gets a little bit offended because he doesn't know what you mean. He just assumes you're insulting him.
No, if they were willing, if I give you a list of questions, I could come back in a few days and get the answers.
I do need something to do that isn't smithing. Next time I'm at the Reluctant Pig, it should be this evening. Yes, I should be able to answer a couple of questions for you. That's not a problem.
Wonderful, thank you. She's gonna make her way outside.
She got like a set of pre-made questionnaires that she leaves at the bar.
Yeah, she's got business cards like written on the back of seaweed.
No, not a bad idea. What's his damn name?
Jago.
Okay. Thank you, and she's gonna walk out.
Cool. Come back soon, maybe. It's strange. And then he goes back to work, just like having to take a couple of minutes, like to ponder the philosophical significance of just what is fire. Yeah, you're you're free to head anywhere else. Is there anywhere else that strikes your fancy on the map?
For me, carpenter may be a next point.
Okay.
I don't know if you're wanting to go to the chapel.
Yeah, you see Astrin, one of the. I don't know if you've actually seen, because a lot of the towns you've been to haven't like let you in, so you can typically see quite a tall building poking out like somewhere towards the middle, and you haven't been able to get an up close look. This seems to follow the same pattern. There's a stone building with like a tower sticking out the top of it towards the northwest end of town, and it's enclosed off by a small picket fence. It seems to stand out, at least from an architectural perspective.
She's probably going to be more likely to go there than the carpenter.
Okay.
So she might tag along if you're going, but realistically she'll be going towards the chapel because...
I mean, I would imagine, Hanu, if you started walking to the building that you've seen from afar on other buildings and this is your opportunity to see this, Hanu would likely follow.
Mm-hmm. Just as a sort of an aside, if you guys are looking for like, let's say, the interesting ones, but the most of the reason a lot of these buildings are named is because there was, on the original map I used, a lot of the buildings are labeled, and I didn't want the original name to be there. So they do have people live in them, like they all have NPCs and that sort of thing all at work. But the interesting buildings, if you want me to make a short list, Osric's General, you're probably going to meet him at some point because this is the general stores where you buy like, you know, anything that you might need. The chapel, where you're headed, and the only other place that's of massive note is Pinner's shop, which is the one that was, they said, go for the one that's making all the noise, which is on the other side of the River Graves, at the like sort of southeast corner of town. But you head up to the chapel first. As I said, it is a stone building of which there's only like 2 or 3, and it was like from straight away, like looking at it, Astrid, it's a very strange sight. There's this big window that's like coloured, and there's the big door. A lot of the buildings that you have seen are wooden and relatively small. They're just as big as they need to be, but this one seems to be like showy big. Like it's that tall on purpose, sort of thing. And you approach through the picket fence, and you see there is a very old man, like sort of like just digging away in one of the little allotment areas, and he seems to be planting some kind of root vegetable. And he does not hear you. He's very old. His hearing is probably quite gone.
Excuse me.
Yes. And he like stands up very, very slowly, like hands on his knees, like. Oh yes. How can I? How can I help? How can I help?
What is this place?
This is the chapel of Saint Gade the Confessor. My name is Father Belderone. Welcome to the chapel. Please come in, come in. And he just like begins pottering towards the front door very slowly, like every step is like 3 inches at a time.
That's fine. Astrid is small. Cool. So,
Right, so he you head inside. The large oaken doors swing open, and there are a number of rows of pews leading towards an altar. And behind the altar, there's another one of those weird coloured windows. But this one is actually like quite breathtaking for a town this small. It's actually really impressive. It is an image of. Let me grab the description of it because it is actually quite specific, if I'm not mistaken. Building Gravesford, cultural centre of the village. Gravesford goes there for all sorts of occasions. The stained glass window depicting Saint Gade in black plate armour, smiting the traitor saint Hyle the Corrupt, is the most astonishing piece of art anyone in town has ever seen. It's quite a large, like probably like 15-foot tall stained glass window of a figure in like black armor, like dark steel armor. So it's more like a gunmetal grey, striking down a second figure, a woman wearing like sort of not like leather armor, but just very generic armor. A lot less detail, a lot less like love has gone into the artistic depiction of this second person, like basically smiting them down with a sword, which has like a feathered, like 3 feathered hilt. So there's a like instead of cross guard, it's the image of feathers, and there's like a gem in the middle of it, and just like in a very biblical art way, not really showing like actual killing them, almost like just holding the sword to them, and there's like light shooting everywhere out of it, and it's still very like a beautiful piece of art. And as the sun hits, it's like a laser light show. There's just like colors going everywhere, and it is quite breathtaking. It reminds you of like the decorative coral art pieces that might have been found in your family home. And Father Belderone continues to potter down the central alleyway, or don't know what you'd call it, the middle bit, the aisle, that's it, towards a small thing in the corner where you can see he is brewing a pot of tea. I'm sure you've experienced tea by this point. And he says, "Oh, come in, sit. How can I? What brings you to the chapel today?" And he sits down by the pot of tea and begins pouring himself a cup and pouring you a cup.
all right. Do you worship the man in the plate?
Yes, and he sort of like turns and says, "This is an image of Saint Gade the Confessor, the saint of truth and justice, smiting down Hyle the Corrupt, who was a previous saint of a betrayer god. Saint Gade being a saint of the Dawn Father, of course."
And
it's quite breathtaking, wouldn't you say?
yeah, what's a saint?
He like pauses for a second, but then like prepares a a statement in his mind, like this isn't the first time someone's asked this, is, well, when a great hero of a deity passes away or carries out a immensely paragonical act in the name of their deity, sometimes they are seen fit to be canonized in the eyes of said deity as a symbol of one of their aspects. In this case, Saint Gade was an advisor to a king long ago in a nation far from here, and they were just a simple priest. They were in service to this king. This king was being twisted. There was a devil in his court, a creature of foul influence, this Haile, the corrupt, as you see here, twisting and turning the king towards evil deeds. And Saint Gade found this abhorrent and strove to fight away this devil, but was unfortunately slain. But despite losing their title, their honor for fighting a fellow knight in court, as they were found, the Dawnfather, the patron of Gade, as they were known, just Sir Gade at the time, saw fit to canonize them as a saint and brought them back as Saint Gade the Confessor. Not but seconds after they were slain, they returned and smote Haile the Corrupt, and became the symbol of the Dawnfather's justice and truth throughout the kingdom and the world since.
Right. What is... Do you get an answer when you pray?
In what way do you mean?
I thought it was... Do you... Speaking back to that?
When I pray, I don't necessarily pray and ask for the answers to questions. I more typically find myself asking for an act to be carried out, and in that case, yes, I would agree. I'm definitely answered back. I'm bestowed of divine magic.
Why
So
not
in that way,
one?
if I call out to Saint Gade and the Dawnfather by association, I might not receive words as response, but I would like this, and he flicks his hand, and a little flame alights underneath the teapot and begins boiling the water. Just like that. That was a prayer, in a way. I prayed to Saint Gade to bring me fire, and fire was brought. In that way, I am answered.
What's the point of worship if the god isn't in front of thou?
Well, I have met. I have witnessed the god, so that's like saying, what's the point in having a father if you're not with them all the time? I have met the Dawnfather. I've seen him in action. When I was a younger man, I fought on the battlefield where he strode beside me. But those days are gone now. However, his light is still felt. You could, well, look here, and he sort of motions to the windows as his light is felt upon us now. I may not be able to see his form, but I can feel his light. I can see his impact.
Right. He's thoroughly, possibly unimpressed by this.
It would probably be at this point you can hear the slow patting thuds of Hanu's feet leaving towards the exit.
Oh, come back soon. Yes.
I'll endeavour to do that. Good to meet you, and gonna leave.
Okay. He seems utterly content. You know, he drinks his tea, and then what you see, if you want, if you what's the word? Loitered around for a little bit. He finishes his cup of tea, goes outside, continues like making his little vegetable garden off to the side of the chapel.
Cool. Cool. Okay.
Cool. Right. So where next? As I said, there's a couple of places that are just like general workplaces. If you wanted to show your face and like make sure everyone knows who you are and meet all the people in the town, you can feel free. Basically, just go on a tour, like knock on all the doors and say like, "Hi,
obviously, with
how's it going?"
time being a factor, the only thing Hunlau would why am I getting his name wrong? It's my name.
It's because you're thinking of Pufflow, I think.
Yeah, probably. Like, if obviously, without wasting too much time, the only place would be the carpenter for him, but he'd probably go down the same questions of what he asked the smithy, like can he work with bone, and looking for someone that has a possible way of making a musical instrument out of bone.
So you would go to the carpenter and they would say like, I don't know how to do it. However, I have like what kind of instrument are you trying? Is it like a wind instrument? Like a flute or something?
Like I can't even remember exactly what it is, but you know, like the rounded like pebble like flutes.
An ocarina.
That's the one.
Yep.
That's
an
essentially what
ocarina without a goblin skull. Yeah.
That's essentially what he's trying to get to. It's a long-winded way. Yes.
They say the carpenter, like in the middle of their work, is actually wait. I believe carpenter is an old woman, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, human woman in her 50s, and she has got like that very much like a is it like Rosie Rivets? Was that her name? The We Can Do It World War II female poster. Yeah, like very much that look, but a bit older. And you're going. She'd say, I don't know enough about musical instruments to do that for you. But if you manage to get your hands on like a flute or an ocarina or some other kind of wind instrument, I could do my damnedest to try and do it for you. No problem. She has no reference for like to draw on to try and do it. But if you find a flute or something, she says there's every now and again you get a bard traveling through, and you could ask them if they've got any instruments spare, and you know, if you manage to get your hands on it, absolutely feel free. I'd like the challenge. I'd like to see if I could do it. Don't have much to do after I built all the houses.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Of course. If you need anything done, let me know. And she just goes back to fashioning something like just like looks like a contraption. You have no idea what it is. Just a thing made of wood. At this stage, it's just like it could be anything.
What was her name? Sorry.
Morgaus. You get the chat. I can, if you'd like. I've got like a list of names, and I would just, like at the end of the session send off a thing, just as a like rule of thumb. If I don't mention the actor that would play them in the movie adaptation, they probably aren't massively important. I don't want to railroad you away from speaking to certain people, but the NPCs that are useful, I think is
I think once we've done the rounds, like the simple places, we would probably gone back to the tavern scene, spoke about the what's her name, Pinner's shop, as it was pointed out to us, and would it be worth going to see what she has together, and then I guess whoever decides to tag along from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you mention you're going to pin a shop, I mean, you can ask around and sort of like say, "Oh, we're headed to pin a shop," you know, that sort of thing, and someone would like lean over and say, like, "Oh, make sure you take your ear defenders," or like the girl who works at the tavern would basically like overhear and like you see her run off to her mum, and her mum's like, "No, you can't go to Pinner's shop. You have to wait till market days." "I don't want to go to Pinner's shop." And then there's like a mini little argument, but then she gets over it and goes back to work, rushing around all over the place. And yeah, you can absolutely head over there. Are you joining now, Amla, or still gonna just keep an eye out on everyone? All right.
Excuse me.
You okay?
Just losing a lung or two. That's fine. Absolutely fine.
That's a sneeze.
All right, so you head over to Pinner's shop. You as you cross over the bridge, you can see it like almost like a beacon. There's quite a long pillar of smoke coming out from the top of the building, from some kind of fireplace on the inside, reminiscent of the blacksmiths. And you head down the road, and you begin to realize quite quickly head towards the noise of the thing. It sounds like a kettle boiling. The entire house. There's just like a high pitched like whistling noise coming out from the building. You tell there's something in there, obviously making the noise itself. But outside the front, there is a quite lovingly hand drawn sign, and it's sort of like this really flowy, fancy font. It says, "Visit Pinner's shop in Graversford. Fresh potions for all ales." And there's like a picture of like a cartoon drawing of a big potion with like sparkles shooting out of it. And it says, "Wizards welcome to compare notes and exchange knowledge." And then there's like that on like a sandwich board, basically, outside the front of the shop. It's a very small building, like almost circular, with like a straw top, almost like a witch's hut that you see in the middle of a wood. And you hear that sort of like whistling coming from inside, and there's a big sign that says "Open" in that same like swirly purple handwritten font on like a little placard hanging off the front door.
Go in, I guess.
Yeah. So you head inside, and as you approach to the door, you hear clink, clink, clink. "Oh, bollocks!" And then someone like scuttering around inside. You open up, head in, and first thing that hits you is like the smell. There's this weird like herbs and spices and incense and all sorts of random bits and pieces floating through the air that just hit you like a wave of something, which I imagine is quite an assault on the senses for Asterin. And you head through. There's a simple counter behind which there is a number of like distilleries, like big glass like bowls with tubes coming out and all sorts of rubberized cabling and that sort of thing, running to different bowls. And there's all sorts of strange liquids boiling over, and there's a big cauldron in the back that's boiling as well. All of the steam of which is sort of like funneled upwards. It like spirals into one channel of smoke and comes out the chimney at the top. And behind the counter, popping up from the floor, clearly just having picked something up, is quite a young girl, like 17 years old, ginger hair, wearing purple robes and a big purple pointed wizard's hat with yellow stars on it. In a movie adaptation of this campaign, she would be played by Kiernan Shipka, person who plays Sabrina in Netflix's Sabrina series. And she pops up and says, "Oh, hello, hi, how can I help?" And as she's sort of like turning to you as she does so, but at the same time like trying to get rid of all the shit that she's picked up off the floor, like hide it underneath the desk. How can I assist? Welcome to Pinner's Magic Shop. And she like does like a hands spread out. She does like a pose, and then like changes the pose to try and get the right one. So how can I? How's it going?
So Nice shop you've got here.
Thank you very much. I'm quite proud of it. It's my own little wizard's laboratory.
We're new in town and thought that we'd investigate the sites.
Well, you have come to the right place. Behold, my wondrous sanctum of arcane studies. And so again, she's just got this like big grin on her face, this like childlike glee, like a very much like a performer. As she's not just a shopkeep; she's also putting on a show.
What magical skill set do you focus on here?
Well, I mostly specialize in potions. However, I am known for a good party trick or two. It's
Tricks?
yes, and she's like snaps her fingers, and there's like mini fireworks go off behind her. Party tricks.
Right.
Hmm.
Astrid gets out a book, starts jotting stuff down.
Okay, and as soon as you pull out a book and start writing, someone goes, "Oh, what are you writing?" And she like both elbows on the desk, hands underneath her chin. What's that?
It's a book. I'm a researcher. I am writing about the surface world as a part of my studies. Would that be able to help?
She looks utterly enamored. When you say like I'm researching, I'm studying, she's like, "Oh my god, another person that can read." And she absolutely just completely disregards Honu. Just you don't exist anymore. It's like, yes, I can help. What? Tell me anything you need. I can help.
Wonderful. What is arcane?
Yes.
What kind of specialities dost thou use?
Me personally, or just the general arcane itself? The mysteries abound.
Both.
So, the arcane study of magic is that of a non-divine nature and a non-natural nature. There are three main sources of magic throughout the world: arcane, primal, divine. Arcane is a more self-focused. Arcane is something you have to pursue, and it's all about your own mastery. It's all based on how you, meaning me, study, or perhaps you were born with a bloodline, but it's about your own personal power. However, for a more divine focused caster, it is how much their god likes them, or if they're a primal power, is how much they like cheese. Arcane power is by far the most powerful, most interesting. I personally specialize in the realm of alchemy and party tricks, but party tricks is not yet formalized as a school of magic. However, it should soon be. And oh yeah, no, exactly that picture you put in the chat, exactly that face. And she goes on and like just rambles, like almost like she's reading from like a textbook, just like, oh yes, the fundamental aspects of this, and she's like going on and on and on and on and on. Completely like she does not care how long it takes to explain. She just will talk to you for as long as possible. She explains to you that the magic she does is mostly like, she doesn't like using it to, like, a lot of people will seek the powers of the arcane to become more dangerous or perhaps exert power over other people. I am not so much a fan of that. I tend to use it in more fun ways.
What would happen, say, if you have a way of creating arcane magic but can't control it?
Oh, that is strange. No, there are numerous studies written about this. Since the divergence, the amount has gone down. I will admit, but she like runs back and picks up like this big book. It's like yes, and scrolling through it, she goes, yes, there's a certain breeds of sorcerers have found a rather unpredictability in their magic. Are you a sorcerer by any chance? Oh wait, and she like goes to a certain page and she like unfolds something and goes, which of the following apply? Born near a rift into an elemental plane. Yes, no?
Yeah.
Remind me to ask you about that later.
Okay.
And then she turns back to it and goes, are you related to a dragon?
No.
No? Mr. Tortle?
Well, not really directly, but you seem intelligent enough. You may have realized that there was markings on my shell.
I did notice, yes. I must admit, my Aquan's quite rusty, so I haven't been able to pick out quite what that any of that says. And she sort of like begins looking over and it's like, no, I'm afraid it's gibberish to me. When you say you are sort of related to a dragon, I mean like, can you trace a dragon in your bloodline? And that is the most of the source of sorcerer's power comes from where in the bloodline the magic comes from. There are many who are perhaps related to dragons. There are also those that are related to a more divine source. Perhaps they had an angel as a distant relative. Some of them,
what about
when born in an elemental rift.
What about if someone, let's say, strongly worshipped a dragon god? To the point where said god bestowed great power onto them.
Well, a very interesting thing about dragons is that they have a tangible physical effect on the people that they interact with and the environments that they find themselves in. It is one of the most distinguishing features when surrounded by a black dragon's lair, for example. Certain regional effects will occur. For example, water might begin to foul and become more acidic, being the elemental affiliation that they have with acid, of course. And in some cases, it could be that by spending enough time with a dragon, especially a dragon deity, one of the two, Scale Tyrant or Platinum Dragon, it could very well be that one's biology becomes changed. However, that would have to be it would take a while. Well, let's just say if you were the spawn of someone whose biology had been altered by presence of a dragon deity, chances are you would know about it because they would, you would also be affected by the biological effect of the dragon deity.
Mm-hmm. Well, that may answer why I've got a draconic mark.
And do you point out where it's written?
Oh yeah, I literally point to the darkest spot on my
okay, she says, if it's draconic, then that shouldn't be too difficult. And she takes a charcoal rubbing of your spike. Obviously, if you're
kind of like my neck retracts a little bit into the shell.
Yeah, you shrink up a little bit. Yeah. So she takes a charcoal rubbing a part of your shell. It's like, wow, fascinating. And she begins like turning it, and she holds it up to the light. She goes, okay, yeah, I understand. So by the looks of it, this is a death curse. Looks harmless unless it actually has a tangible magical effect on you. An interesting tattoo. well, in certain prisons in the world, people take similar artistry to themselves to indicate their affiliation, and this appears to be something similar. It's more of like a well, in some certain tribes in the wastes west of the realm of Vasloria, there's a certain tribe that likes to scar their victims, and they do that so that if a tribe ever comes back into resurgence and begins attacking again, they'll be able to find the people that survived the last attack. They typically take to cutting the tip off the nose, and then you can tell anyone with a flat nose is a survivor of this clan, and then they'll be able to target them more easily. It appears you've got a similar situation going on here, but I'm sure you knew that.
When you say magical effects,
yes. Does it spew black smoke? And she gets another book. She goes, does it spew black smoke at midnight at a full moon?
no, but it does this,
And he casts Chill Touch.
Okay, she like matrix dodges out the way. Wow. Okay, right. Very interesting. And she just gets another book and just starts scribbling in it. It's like, okay, right. So this. Okay, yeah. And she's like starts like drawing notes and like annotating that charcoal rubbing. She's just so fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Just scribbling all around it. And she looks like like a 6-year-old that you've just given an entire pack of Tang Fastics. Like she's going off her head, very excited. So this is absolutely incredible. Sorry, what's your name? What's your name?
well, I've been many names, but the name I'm gonna go by now is Kau Hunu Lepa.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Writing that down. Perfect. And she begins like she writes down your name and then gets like a translation guide into Aquan. It's like yes, okay, that's what the name means. Perfect. Running through, awesome. And then if I continue on, and she like doing like sort of calculations, like expanding upon looking at the spike. Because if you leave me with this for a little while, I should be able to well, I'm sure we can find out a lot more about it. How much? What else can it do? Apart from shoot ghostly hands. If it can do anything else, that is. But looking at the runes here, it does look like it can do other things.
It's been known to give me a boost of health when needed.
Okay. Unnatural fortitude. Perfect. Lovely. Okay. Well,
but
this is very
it's relatively still new. It was part of a process. See, all the other runes, that's part of my heritage. I'm what you may call a guardian of the spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least I would be. See, the thing is, the spirits don't want to talk to me.
Well, that seems very selfish of them. You have been a wonderful conversationalist, both of you. I'll be honest, it's been some time since I've had an intellectual conversation. Most of the times I spend, I just potter around town, identifying family heirlooms that are actually just shiny rocks. Tell me, how long ago exactly was it that this mark appeared, and did anything of note happen before or after this event, or is it just out of the blue?
Well, process is a ritual, a way of entering into the fold, so to speak. And the stories that unfold reveal themselves. Not much before, really, until that one appeared. Folks didn't take too kindly to the tale that they saw from.
very narrow-minded. Very narrow-minded. There's nothing particularly off about it, apart from the, it's got some sinister connotations, but it's not. Well, unless you put it there yourself, I don't see why they should. It's very narrow-minded of them. What? Sorry, did you say something happened after? You said nothing until.
Well, because of its meaning to my people, we were outcast. My mother and my grandfather.
Very disconcerting. So it didn't appear to be an effect of the rune itself, but a reaction to said runes. Most interesting. No, typically in the cases of
able to translate, you may see or notice something regarding one who goes by the name of Krull.
Yes, I did notice that, but there's all sorts of Draconic there. It didn't stand out to me. The Draconic language is very much a Draconic names. How familiar are you with the language of Draconic?
As a character.
Yeah. Yes.
I speak it.
Okay. Yeah. So she explains to you, so probably something you already know, that the whole language of Draconic, because it's so ancient, is quite a simple language. So they don't have just names. They're almost like the way that in the Romanizations or the localized versions of Native American names. Obviously there's that for Dances with Wolves or Standing Bull or that sort of their names are a description of something in particular. Draconic is very much that same way. Dragons name themselves after things. So their name would be Death Wing Fire, but translated into Draconic, it's I don't know, Dorgadan or something. It's this big. It sounds big and scary, but it's actually just usually 3 or 4 words essentially, and they're very short, guttural noises. So when she's looking at it, she just sees any number of these words. If you put brackets around them, would become a name. So she sort of glosses over where it says cruel, because that's it's that could be a name, no problem. That's cru and u are just other words in Draconic, basically. It's kind of like how the dragon language works in Skyrim. All of the dragons are called Alduin. That means world eat dragon or something. And because his name literally means world eater, and that sort of thing. The names themselves are just words just stuck together. Just going to see if I can find any other names of dragons that might work. That's not our one. Yeah, so Alduin, Duinevir, Cross Ulha, they all are 3-syllable names because each one of those syllables is a word. Let's see if I can find.
And Crow would probably have gone by the name of almost Death Priest, because that's what he was.
Exactly. Yeah. So she would explain to you yes. So this is what the exact translation, if you were to go word for word, move it into a more literal movement, it appears to be Death Priest or Death Herald, something along those lines. Quite deeply ingrained into the runes here. However, it does seem to be part of a bigger picture. It would take some time for me to decode this, if that's okay to be left with it.
I'm in no rush.
Oh, perfect.
Interesting knowledge you have. Much appreciated.
Well, it's nice to know someone is paying attention to the knowledge I have. Thank you very much. And she, if you're all good, that will be she'll happily say goodbye.
Ooh, did we catch her name?
Yeah, Pinner.
Oh yeah, you've written them down. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and because it's just Pinner's shop, so Pinner. Okay. We'll note that is not her actual name. That's her wizarding code name.
That's cool.
It's basically like a stage name, essentially. Okay, cool. So, anything else you'd like to do in town, or will it be heading off to the quest?
Nothing for me.
I'm good. Amra, you joining us?
Are you coming back to the tavern?
Yeah.
Then yes.
Cool. So you grab Amara and you head off to the only place that you know there are goblins. I imagine looking into some kind of reward. You've been told, basically bring back for every left ear that you bring back, we will you can cash them in, get one silver piece.
Ollie,
Yes.
did they specifically say left ears?
That's like the example they go by.
Something that can
if
be
you bring
mirrored.
back yeah, exactly, yeah. So if you bring back 15 left ears and 15 right ears, they're like, okay, so you killed 15 goblins.
What if I was to bring back 15 left ears and then 3 days later bring back 15 right ears?
They would probably find it somewhat suspicious. They would want some kind of consistency, but chances are you could pull it over there on them.
Okay.
What about 15 left ears and 15 right hands?
That's just asking for trouble, I'm afraid. I don't think they're good enough for that.
So what you're saying is pull out all their eyes and say they're all left eyes.
You are more than welcome to try. There's just a translation of one of the dragon names. I just find it really interesting, as an example. Dunavir, he's cursed to never die, hence his name is Cursed Never Dying.
Sorry, I know that went off tangent, but it would have probably been raised.
Yeah, no. I mean, I like to sort of not clear things up like that, but examples of little bits of tidbits of information scattered throughout the world as a sort of it just helps flesh things out a little bit. Like I said, that document about the languages, the ways things are spoken. It doesn't really add anything mechanically to the world. I just think it just makes things more interesting if because then I can describe how you hear a language and the way it sounds. You're like, oh, okay, they're speaking this language, but you don't know. If someone spoke French to you, you would probably know they're speaking French, but you wouldn't know what they said. Is that sort of thing. So you head back to where you found or where you fought the goblins. It's like a day's travel, I believe. Move over here. Naylin and actually Angus is nowhere to be seen. Naylin refuses to leave her room. She does not want to be disturbed. It is like a day's travel, because it's a day's travel to back where you were from, and where you came through. And upon reaching the place, you see there are blood splashes on the floor, indicating obviously where the bodies were slain. You see a particularly large one slap bang in the middle where you were so lucky to be attached. But the bodies are gone. They appear to have been dragged off by some kind of forested mountain predator, like a mountain cat or something. But hidden little pathway in the woods still remains visible. You because you found it the first time, so you can sort of figure out it's tucked behind a couple of bits of shrubbery. Doesn't appear to have been moved. But upon going back, you're very easily, you know what you're looking for. You can know where to find it, and you spot the little extra pathway.
Should we follow the pathway?
Seems like a good idea.
Okay. So you begin to head down this pathway. Let me grab the PDF really quick. I think there's the description. So the first thing you're traveling down this, the first thing you notice is that this is it's clearly designed for creatures smaller than you. No surprise for it to be goblins, but it is quite narrow, not very well trodden, but used enough that there is a discernible path through the forest. So two things I'll need from you. What is the marching order, and how are you progressing as you travel through? What was your way of travel? Like, traveling stealthily? Are you like checking the ground in front
Who
of you?
is
That
the
sort of thing?
stealthiest?
Probably Armin Ra.
Give me 1 second, I'll check.
What are you, Lana? You're not even Lana. I don't know what. Ellie.
Oh, not
what's
Lana.
yours?
My stealth is +7.
Oh, so you are.
Okay. What is that? Done that. What the fuck? Appear to be having some slight technical difficulties. What happened? That is very strange. Right. Okay, right. So you guys continue to travel down this pathway. So you're traveling up front. You've got the highest stealth, right? Make a stealth check, and also, if you're up front, a survival check as well, please.
Can I do it aided?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. You got assistance from those two guys. So make the survival check with advantage, and everyone makes stealth checks as you are traveling up. Oh, nice, that's funny. What a box. It's average, technically. It's difficult to be stealthy when you're that big, traveling down a path that small. But you
I'd
continue
like to point out I
traveling
am
down.
hunched still as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Like all tucked into your shell, like waddling side to side. The other two of you seem pretty good at least keeping yourselves quiet. You don't see very far how you could be seen. Particularly, there's bushes all over, like every which way. You can't even see more than like 30 feet off into the rocks and the bushes off to the side of you. But it does start getting darker and darker and darker as you sort of travel down like ravines, almost like as the ground becomes rockier and more. The altitude becomes more unstable, like you're going up and down and up and down, and eventually like cliffs might reach up, or large trees, and it becomes just darker in general. So you do find a bit of luck in that respect. After you're traveling for about 10 minutes or so, Astrid, you notice up ahead, probably about 20 feet in front of you, there is a ring of rope in the middle of the path that leads off to the side towards a tree, and then with a rather good survival check, you can tell that rope goes like up into the tree and appears to be on some kind of like pulley system.
I'm gonna point it out to the other two and suggest we go around it.
Yeah, no problem. But once you can see it, it's very easy to avoid. It's literally just like a bit of rope on the floor, and you just easily step over, no problem. And avoid that. And then another 10 minutes or so, you see another very similar thing. There is a quite clearly a pit trap in the middle of the path, but again, able to skirt around the edge of it, no problem. It becomes clear to you as you're traveling down here that there is a quite significant, like, we don't want anyone not a goblin going down this way. There's a snare trap, there's a pit trap, all of which is, if you knew it was there, is absolutely fine. But if you can't tell, you imagine it probably would be quite nasty. So they clearly are putting some kind of effort into hiding this place. However, you continue to travel down the path, and it takes about an hour before you start to see the trees begin to thin out. Everyone make a perception check. Okay. Astrid, being up front, naturally, you'll be able to do this quite well. You spot up ahead, there is another one of these large protrusions of rock that are scattered all about the place. But you notice, tucked away in a little crevasse almost into the side of one of these jagged pieces of rock, there is what looks like a wall, like a piece of worked stone brick with it's like completely flat rather than the obviously very rough exterior of the rock that you're used to seeing.
How big is it? Like how tall?
Tall.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to tell because you can't quite tell where it like would go up to. But from here, it looks around 10 feet tall. It does look old though, very old.
I'll point it out and suggest we go take a look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you will see this this old looking, like it's like, you know, if you walk in the middle of the woods and you find like a really old stacked up rock wall, except in this case it is very like finely made. It is of slightly better make than just rocks piled on top of each other. And you guys are notified. Let me get rid of these tokens because they're not here. And I hope this is going to work, because if not, shame. Okay, right. I'm going to gamble a little bit here. Get rid of this. Why is that not working? There we go, perfect. So this should, if I move across, you guys have already rolled stealth, haven't you? Yeah. Move you over here. Should be able to see in the bottom left your 3 tokens, and then up ahead there are 2 worked stone walls, each jutting from the left and right sides of this little crevasse of rock, leading inwards. And upon getting closer, you can see through the inside there are a number of bushes and various other bits of detritus past these walls, but there appears to be some more worked stone.
There's going to be things hiding in the bushes, aren't there? Okay.
Only one way to find out.
Are we going in?
I can't see any other way to go.
Actually, with your survival check from earlier, you can see the footprints from that were like you're semi following from this path do seem to get towards this area and head through this like mini gatehouse.
Okay.
Of very like ancient stonework. So you begin to creep up. So feel free it should. I haven't actually used this new dynamic lighting system, but if you move your tokens around, it should automatically reveal on the map.
Oh my gosh, it does. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's one of the premium features. They're updating it, so I'm let me know if it doesn't work, or crash your PC because that can happen. Right, you just moved, and it says for me that you can see a massive amount of white space.
I can.
Because I can't see what you can see. I can see others. Okay, yeah.
I can see more bushes.
Okay, cool. Because from what I can see, it looks like you can see basically off the edge of the map.
I can see this.
Cool.
Ollie, I think if you click
Yeah,
Control L on the token, you can see what they can see.
Oh, for real?
Something like that. I know. There is.
Oh, yeah. I see it. Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
And that's how to get around people that have just gone, yeah, I want to see the whole map, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. Why is that? So it's different for the both of you.
Honu will run in, well, not run, but walk up where into his shell.
Okay, so you jog up towards that, and then just and like a little bit of momentum carry, so you like a hockey puck, just ding, 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 like skid a little bit forward on the floor. Roll some dice.
Do you want us to do passive initiative kind of thing?
See very quickly. You hear coming from further into the like behind one of these walls. You can't quite tell which one. You hear of clearly goblins talking, seemingly in reaction to the collision on the floor.
Okay.
And then none of you speak Goblin, do you?
No.
Okay.
No.
You hear a oh shit, that's the wrong thing. You hear talking, and then coming from outside of one of these sort of pseudo doorways comes creeping a goblin, and he steps out, takes like 2 steps forward, spots you, goes, and I'm gonna need you to roll for initiative. As he just goes to immediately like scrambles along himself to try and grab a short bow that squats along over his shoulder. Clearly wasn't expecting visitors. Let's get that. Cool. Right. So wow, a whole bunch of garbage. Lovely. Right. So.
Oh. So before, as soon as I see him.
Mm-hmm.
So before, like, sorry to retcon a little bit. So as soon as I see him, I'm going to talk to him telepathically.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, go for it. What do you want to say?
What am I going to say? It's a very good question. I'm going to say, don't say a word, or you'll be the first to die.
I think it's too late for that.
Right.
So literally, as he came around the corner and spots us,
yeah,
that's kind of what I'm saying to him.
Okay, make an intimidation check. He's gonna make a wisdom check. I think he might have a negative modifier, so you're not completely stuffed. Okay, so the chances are this might work. Yeah, he just freezes. He like turns a corner and like goes to grab a sword and goes, "Bleh," and then hears a voice in his head, and like lets go of the as he was like drawing a short bow, just lets go of it on his shoulders, and stops. The combat is going through continue, but the other people that he was calling out to seemingly aren't aware of your presence just yet. So first up is Astrid. He just has frozen in the middle of this thing here, not wanting to move, not wanting to doing anything.
Are we killing this bug? Killing him?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Wonderful. So as soon as I see them, wooden short bow, I think, is the best way forward. Yeah, I'm going to shoot them. 14?
14 is going to miss, unfortunately. Actually, wait, shit, let me double check. No, it does hit. It hits. Yeah, AC 13.
6 piercing damage.
He takes the arrow to the chest and then looks down at it and goes, "Ah!" and just freaks out, and immediately starts making noise because he's just been shot in the chest. He does not die, unfortunately.
Shit.
Anything else in your turn? You've got obviously bonus action and movement left if you so desire.
I'm going to move back behind here.
Okay, you tuck yourself around that way. You don't have cunning action yet to bonus action hide or anything like that.
No.
No. And no, you didn't have sneak attack. Checking. Cool. Right, that's your turn. So Amra, you're up next. This guy, it begins just like not weeping, but making a lot of noise because he's just been shot in the chest.
I am gonna.
Holy shit.
Okay. So if you remember last week, I mentioned the crit shot thing I used. Roll another d20. Let's see what you might get. 6 on d20. Either way, he's going to die. But let's see if something juicy happens. And force damage tends to do weird shit. Magic damage charge.
Can he just explode?
Very much might do. Okay, here we go. Force. Do so. 6. Good hit. Do not worry, damage dice. Instead, deal maximum result possible with those dice. So yeah, you do enough damage to kill him twice over, and he just goes and just like from Scanners, that movie. His head just explodes. What does your Eldritch Blast look like, by the way?
Can it be whatever I want it to be?
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's not like, oh yeah, it's actually a completely silent and like a bullet. Like it has to be, an Eldritch Blast. But yeah, absolutely, whatever you fancy.
Can I come back to you?
Yeah, of course. Not a problem. Oh, and I've accidentally removed him from existence. Apparently.
Well, that's what my Eldritch Blast did.
That powerful. There we go. He's back.
And then I'm just gonna duck behind.
Okay. So next up, after hearing the screams of his friend dying, another goblin comes scurrying around from the same doorway that he was in, and all he sees is his friend dead on the floor. And it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he gets to like here, and all he sees is just this big rock, like in the middle of the doorway, and like looks at it quizzically and tries to shoot it with a short bow. Natural 1. He just and the arrow just completely goes like straight backwards over his shoulder. Goes, yeah, and then I think he doesn't have enough movement. But he's just going to start like running this way. Can't do much else in his turn. Honu.
Let me roll up another roll just to see what I would do.
Roll a wisdom save to see if you do something intelligent.
Yeah. Okay, bonus action out of the shell.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get to him? What is my movement? Yeah, I'll run to that spot. And because of reach, I attack him with my lance.
Oh, nice.
I'm guessing
No,
my
I missed,
misses.
unfortunately. You're still a bit disoriented from standing
Emerging.
up and like just getting out of your shell and
Yeah.
just kind of on backwards. So you run over as fast as you can. He just like running as fast as he can away from this rock that's now come to life and has tried to stab him. He's very confused and very scared. And I think that was your turn, right? Because you bonus action to come out of the shell.
Yep.
Cool. Right. So next up, scurrying out from behind, now seeing a bit of movement. Didn't get a turn the first time because didn't hear anything.
Yep.
Is going to run up and try and take a swing at you. Let's see. Your AC 17, isn't it? Because you've got the.
It is.
Because of your shell. Yep. So no, that misses. He has a 16 and just deflects off of your shell, and he yells something in Goblin he's got a scimitar and a shield, and then he is going to make bonus action disengage and run back up this way. Basically, going to run away from you. That is that. Astrid, so you are just like poking around the corner. You've seen two more goblins show up, one of which Honu has missed, and the other one has missed Honu.
Okay. I'm going to poke my head around. Yeah, why not? I'm gonna do another short bow. That would have sneak attack, right? Because they've not seen me.
I believe so. Yeah. Attacking from hiding, as long as he's within range.
17.
17's going to hit. Yeah. I assume you're going for this guy here.
Yeah.
Okay, 12 points of damage. Makes this dude go splat. Nicely done. And he begins like turning to run, and after the lance just misses, he's like, yes, I'm away scot-free, and then through the back, short bow shot, and he goes down. Nicely done. So there is another one up in this building up here, but you've still got all your movement if you fancy doing anything.
I'm gonna wait here to see if another one comes out.
Okay. Umra.
I'm gonna take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
I can just about see this guy.
I think he's going to have a little bit of cover, but you can see him, yeah.
So if I move that,
yeah, if you move around, you've got him, yeah, no problem.
And then, so I wasn't hidden, but I was behind cover, and he hadn't seen me there.
I believe, I think it's unseen attacker. So if you attack while he doesn't see you, or like immediately after he can't see you, you should have advantage on the attack roll. Yeah. Cool. 20 is going to do it.
3.
And 3 point. So he manages to shrug it off, but does not look happy. Of a insert description here. Eldritch Blast hits him in the back.
And then I'm gonna get back.
Cool. You scurry back around that side. As you're up against this wall, I don't know how much you know about dwarven architecture, but this like sort of mini fortress gatehouse thing does appear to be of dwarven make. Clearly not. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to say that this is not something a goblin built. but yeah, it looks dwarvish in nature. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. And then Honu, you're up next. So the only one that you can tell is around is this one tucked
The
away
one
up
that
in the
ran
building up
off.
here.
And he
Yeah.
went up here, didn't he?
hmm
Yeah. I
There's also a second doorway in the building up that way if you want to head just directly. Cool.
And attack.
Go for it.
They just disappeared off of my thing.
But
I think it's because he's gone
upon
behind the
moving
wall.
up there, you see that I kind of lower my lance to my side and pull a spiked mace and attack with my mace.
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, better for close encounters. Nice, and with 6 points of bludgeoning damage, absolutely splat. A combination of that and the and a bit of force damage earlier.
Yeah.
Deals
Bonus
with him,
action
no
back in my
problem.
shell.
Okay, just to make sure. And you wait a second. Wait a second. Doesn't appear that there's anyone else going to be joining you.
Okay, out my shell. And I do what I did to the last goblin I came across that I took down.
For all three of them, or just
No, I
just
only
the
do
one?
this one. So I take the whole head.
Okay.
But I take the ear, the left ear, off of this one and stick it in my pouch rather than.
Cool.
But I carry the head.
Is there anything?
So,
is there anything left to collect from the one that I Eldritch Blast that I created on the Eldritch Blast?
Conveniently enough, his entire head is disintegrated apart from his left ear.
Oh, sweet. So I will collect his left ear.
Okay, you collect his left ear, no problem. And I assume you do the same for the last of the three. Collect all of the left ears. Yeah. So if someone wants to add to I don't know if you can have like a party thing to hold all of the equipment, or if you want to just like carry it individually.
Someone
write down.
Might want to give us a sheet, like a pie
sheet for it. Yeah, sure. Oh wait, no shit. Didn't mean to do that. There we go. So yeah, it will be it's a character sheet, but if you just like, then you can drag and drop all the items into the equipment, and you can see how much it weighs and quantity and that sort of thing. Cool. Yep. So you should be able to see that.
Is Goblin Ear in the compendium?
I would have to double check, but I don't think so. Shame that. I'm honestly surprised. It's come up in every adventure I've ever run. Goblin Ears. Okay.
Cool.
So, 3 goblin ears added to the inventory, and the mini canyon that you find yourselves in, the rock faces stretching many feet up, dozens of feet up into the air before the cliff face, seems to be quiet once again. You see throughout like these buildings, or the buildings, these like just that in case you were wondering, they're like the outlines of where a building once stood, like the bottom like story maybe, with the top has just worn away in the many years since it's been occupied. And these would have been doorways, but just as many were just things that have fallen down or perhaps eroded over the. And I think, if it's right with everyone, after the successful first combat, traveling further down, you should see more and more of these, and then flanked by 2 statues of dwarves with battle axes is a set of double doors leading further into this sort of like Petra-esque facade in the side of a cliff.
I think problems.
Yeah,
tends to happen with it's a bit, it slows things down.
I'm having so much fun with
It is good fun, yeah. Like, I was saying yesterday about the like last week with that labyrinth, and I was saying all my players just like moving themselves around, like, oh, what's this do? What's this way? Like, yeah, find our way through it.
Can I search the goblin?
Absolutely, yeah. They're not belongings. You find on each goblin none like cooked rats and what looked like a set of knuckle bones from some kind of humanoid creature. All been carved to have little like goblin, but otherwise don't seem to immediately obvious what the use of them is. There isn't anything that you would consider by any means.
How many cooked rats?
They have 1d4 each. 3d4, 6 cooked rats.
6 cooked rats, and how many knuckle bones?
They each have, well, across the 3 of them, there would be not a single one of them way. They're not like shaved down to be a cube, like knuckle bone dice. They're just like little knuckle bones that have got like
Just
scribblings
etched.
on them. 7.
So 3 etched knuckle bones.
Yeah. A goblin trinket. Cool with everyone. I think at a so this strange stronghold.
Me.
Oh, it's
I'll give
fine
it.
on my end.
I'll give it a minute.
It's probably me.
How's it now?
No.
Let me see. Oh god, now my laptop is going funny. Well, this seems like a perfect stopping point because my Roll20 is playing up as well. As I said, it's probably a dynamic lighting mechanical issue. That tends to be the case. It does slow things down.
Yeah, I had that when
meant to be.
I started up a Mac dynamic light and my computer just crashed when I was DMing. Because I think
I mean, when I was using that massive labyrinth map, I mean, it like fully bricked laptops because it had to use so much space to try and count how many lines are in it. Yeah, hopefully the new one.
yeah, Nick's
Having some difficulty here.
Yeah.
I will.
Thanks, Ollie.
Okay. Yeah.